Today's video is on reliability and validity, and these will usually be in the investigations paper as a 10-mark question, and often these are not well answered, so it's important that you really have a grasp on the different types of reliability and the different types of validity. So the first thing you need to know is what is reliability and what is validity, and what's the difference between the two. It's important to remember that if a measure is not reliable, your results cannot be valid. In other words, you can have reliability without validity, but you cannot have validity without reliability. In order to have validity, you have to have reliability as well. So reliability refers to the consistency of your measurement. It also may refer to how replicable your study is, whether you're able to repeat it at a different time or place, the different sample. Validity examines what you aim to examine. So have you measured what you set out to measure? And the whole concept of validity refers to your results being true and honest. First of all, we're going to look at some questions in relation to reliability and validity that could be applied to your samples or your participants. The first one is to think about your sample or your participants and ask yourself, are these participants being studied in a real life setting? Is your sample a large sample and or a representative sample? And if you tested these participants again, would they produce similar results? So there are three questions that when you're considering reliability and validity, if you're thinking about participants, there are three questions that you could ask yourself. In relation then to the first question, if you're asking were your participants tested in a real life setting, that obviously relates to your ecological validity. If you conduct your research in a real life setting or as close to real life as possible, then your results will have ecological validity. And what that means is that your results will be generalisable to a real life situation. So they're not just results that you gather from the study, but they're actual results that can be applied to real life, and therefore that increases their usefulness. In relation to the second question about your sample size and whether or not they're representative, that relates to external validity or population validity. If you have a large sample or a representative sample, then that increases this type of validity. The last question with your participants was thinking about if you were to test them again at a different time, would you get the same or similar results? And if your answer is yes, then that means your study has external reliability. So often researchers will test a group of participants and then go back and revisit them, maybe after a few weeks, months, years even, to see if the results hold true, and that is external reliability. And what I want you to do is take a piece of paper and write down questionnaires or self-report. This is a common question that would come up in the examination. They might ask you to design a self-report, design a questionnaire, and then ask you to evaluate the tool which you have designed in terms of reliability and validity. So underneath questionnaire, I want you to write down the following points. The first issues in relation to reliability are internal reliability, split half method, external reliability, test retest, face validity, external validity, and concurrent validity. Concurrent validity means that you're comparing a new method or a new test with an already well-established one that is reliable and which is valid, and that both tests are claiming to measure the same variables. So the example that we would have would be in Baron-Cohen et al. From the core studies, where the eyes task, the results from it were compared to the participants taking the strange stories task, which is also a measure of theory of mind, and their two sets of results were compared to see if there was a correlation between their scores, and there was, which showed that the eyes task was a valid test for theory of mind. Something else we need to think about in terms of validity in particular are demand characteristics. We all know about demand characteristics such as social desirability, where participants will behave in the way that they feel the experimenter or researcher wants them to behave. So add demand characteristics to your list and write beside it how demand characteristics could lower validity. And in particular, we are thinking about internal validity. And this is still to do with questionnaires. So why would questionnaires sometimes produce demand characteristics, and how would that lower your validity? So add that on your list as well, please. Now, on the same page, a new subheading, which is observations, and we're going to think about all of the reliability and validity issues which are relevant for observation. So we're going to write down the following: inter-rater reliability, external reliability, internal reliability, ecological validity, face validity, population validity, and temporal validity. So you will have 7 points down for observations. And again, beside each of those, I want you to write down, for example, inter-rater reliability. How would you ensure that your observation had high inter-rater reliability? How would you ensure an observation had high ecological validity? So you're thinking there probably of naturalistic observations. How would you ensure an observation had population validity as well? So again, using your word mat, and these just have to be one sentence beside each of the key terms. Our last subheading is laboratory settings. And by this, I don't just mean laboratory experiments, I mean any study, even a controlled observation. Like we have a picture here from Milgram's study, which was a controlled observation, although it was conducted in a lab. So we're thinking about lab settings in general, and how conducting a study in a lab can affect the reliability, usually increased reliability, with lowered validity. So your terms for laboratory settings are the following: number 1, inter-rater reliability; 2, external reliability; 3, standardised procedures; 4, objectivity; 5, test-retest; 6, control of extraneous variables; and your last one is internal validity / experimental validity. And again, for each of those, just write down a short sentence explaining how you would ensure your study has this, how would you ensure an experiment has objectivity, how would you conduct a test-retest, and importantly, with ones like test-retest, that you say how that increases reliability. How does objectivity increase reliability? How do standardised procedures increase reliability? So for the ones which don't actually have the word reliability or validity, you're going to think how it would increase reliability or validity. And control of extraneous variables, this one, you're thinking about reliability and validity for both of those. The areas then in a laboratory setting where reliability or validity would be lowered is they would be lowered in terms of ecological validity, external validity, and experimenter bias. So again, for each of these, why in a laboratory setting would there be lowered ecological validity? And more importantly, what are the implications of that? Why in a lab setting would there be lowered external validity? And why in a lab setting might there be, not necessarily, but there might be experimenter bias? So add those to your list as well. So you might want to play the slide back to make sure you've got all the points down that you're supposed to. But basically you're going to have points down for self-reports, observations and laboratory settings. And what we're going to do then in class is we're going to give you an exam style question where you're being asked to evaluate either a self-report, an observation or an experiment in terms of reliability and validity for the 10-mark question. So you really need to be focused and thinking about what I've said here about the specific types of reliability and validity which can be related to each of those different research methods. Thank you.